All right, back here on Michigan Podcast, time for this week's 10-Minute War with our good friend Mark Rogers, maybe the one and only reasonable bucknut in the universe. He's also the host of a fantastic YouTube channel. If you also are a college football fan and recognize there's only 2 times a year, as a plaque that my wife just bought me says, football season and waiting for football season. Check out his channel, Mark Rogers, the voice of college football. Good to see you, brother. How you been?
Hey, Steve, I'm doing well. It's, been a good college football season thus far, depending on what team you root for, of course. But just looking at the action and the unpredictability on the field, I think it's been pretty amazing. But in the Big Ten, look out, because here it comes.
Indeed, this gauntlet called the Big Ten East is about to unwind. I saw that Pro Football Focus today, three of their toughest schedules left in the country are in the Big Ten. Nebraska, Indiana, and Michigan State, the latter two, of course, in the Big Ten East. Let's start with Michigan. I laid out 5 predictions for what I think we will see happen in the second half of the season. Any of those you want to take issue with, or is there something yourself that you would like to add?
Well, I think your prediction that JJ McCarthy is going to start a game is quite interesting, because I think there's quite a debate, and I'm sure you hear more of it than I do, among Michigan fans right now, looking at what this team's accomplished and looking at the road ahead and thinking, okay, wow, we've made it to 6-0. What is this team capable of, and what should we expect? And why not make a move now where we can insert JJ McCarthy? Cade McNamara's done a nice job. The offense has had to be opened up more so over the last 3 or 4 games once they stepped into Big Ten play, and he's been capable of hitting on 55 to 60% of his throws,
which is not good in today's college football. That's not good.
Not great in today's college football. He has posted about 240 or 50 yards passing in most of those games, something in that range. So my initial thought was, what is he going to have to do to lose his job versus do you take the bold move and replace him, even though he hasn't lost his job because of quote unquote poor play, or the team has lost a game or is woefully behind in a game and you need a spark? Is JJ McCarthy really is his floor any lower than Cade McNamara's? If he doesn't come through and become a boost or a huge upgrade, isn't he still Cade McNamara? And doesn't he get better prepared against the best teams in the league for next year's run? So I'm starting to lean toward this JJ McCarthy. Get him in the lineup, let him go, let him cut loose. I don't think he's going to be any worse than Cade McNamara. And of course, the ceiling is enormous, and the preparation for 2022 is another factor as well.
So here's where I'm at on this. I agree with the decision to not make the switch yet, because I think a lot of what has transpired here, I think people don't really truly understand how wrecked this program was. And this is where I've just disagreed with you all offseason. You don't make 7 coaching hires because you just think you need a soft reboot. You got to recalibrate. This is like year 1 of Harbaugh all over again. It's from a culture standpoint. It's just that from a fan and administration booster standpoint, it's not, because of all the water under the bridge from the unmet expectations of the previous 6 years. But culturally, they hard rebooted, man. They unplugged the DVR from the wall in order to reset it. All right. And a lot of what has transpired this year, there's a few areas of the team where they are championship talented. Running back is one, offensive line's the other. And then they've got an All-American or all Big Ten level player at every level of the defense. And then in and around that, they're filling in guys that are developing in real time. And it just so happens to be the most important position on the field. Quarterback is one of them. And the one thing Cade does bring to the table right now is, and you saw this in the way the team responded from the 3 times it fell behind against Nebraska, where he was able to lead scoring drives down the field to answer all 3 times. And it wasn't like he was like, Joe Montana-ing this thing. A lot of it was just his leadership in the huddle, his presence on the field, okay? And so I wouldn't disrupt that right now, because I think the chemistry balance on this team is as good as I've ever seen it in the Harbaugh era. It does look like a throwback to a Lloyd Carr, Bo Schembechler era of esprit de corps, playing for each other, playing for Michigan. But the minute that we hit the wall, if it happens, so to me, I think you let Cade McNamara play himself in or out of the lineup. Because if you yank him now and put JJ in, I think you threaten that chemistry. But you have to have JJ ready, because if you look at film reviews of Michigan games with the All-22, Devin Gardner, former Michigan quarterback, has done several of these, just brutal assessments of Cade McNamara. Just missing guys wide open for easy gains, underthrows, overthrows. I mean, you just can't win like this. You just can't. Even Harbaugh admitted yesterday at his presser, quote, "We've left a lot of meat on the bone offensively," unquote, which is about as close as he gets to player criticism, because for all of his reputation antics, he is zealous about protecting his players in public, okay? And so I think you have to have JJ ready, and I think you summed up the reason why. And Chris Breiler over at Wolverine Digest puts it this way, and it basically is a summary of what you just laid out, Mark. I've never seen Cade McNamara do anything that I thought JJ McCarthy could not do. But I've seen JJ McCarthy do multiple things that I know Cade McNamara cannot do, right? So I think we all know that JJ McCarthy can stand there and hand the ball off 40 damn times. I think we all know that, right? He can do that, okay? We've also seen, though, multiple throws from JJ McCarthy that we know Cade McNamara cannot make. And we also know that J.J. McCarthy can run in ways Cade McNamara cannot, which is why they're bringing him in now. And look what just happened with Oklahoma. You know, I don't think Caleb Williams, who played no high school football his senior year because of COVID, I don't think he's that much more developed than Spencer Rattler. I think what happens is, because he's a runner, and now you have to account for the 11th guy on the offense, that now you have to play more man defense against receivers than you do with Spencer Rattler under center. And that's the issue that we have. You run a spread offense and the quarterback can't run it. Jerry DiNardo nailed this years ago when we brought Rich Rod into the league. He pointed this out on BTN. You cannot run this offense without a quarterback as a threat to run. And then if your quarterback's a threat to run, you better have two of them. Because then you're looking at a situation with Ole Miss and Matt Corral running him 34 damn times in one game last week. You can't do that, all right? These guys get pounded. And so this is where we're at right now. We're running a spread that's not an air raid. So we're running a spread with a quarterback who's no threat to run, which means it's 10 on 11 every down. And that's just not going to be successful against the teams we have coming up. So I think you have to have JJ ready, and I think you have a quick hook, but I don't think you hook Cade McNamara until he does it to himself, because of the chemistry balance you don't want to upset at the exact same time. Your thoughts?
Well, Spencer Rattler's a hell of a lot better than Cade McNamara.
Agree. I'm just using an example that's real time.
It makes total sense. It makes total sense. Yeah. But they were willing to make that move, but they got into a situation down 3 touchdowns to a rival.
And that's an example of what I mean. Spencer Rattler played his way out, right? He fumbled the ball. He threw a pick. They're down 3 touchdowns. And I mean, the fans were cheering for Caleb Williams on national TV 3 weeks ago when Rattler's leading them from behind to beat West Virginia. Lincoln Riley was right not to do it then. But on that stage, the guy plays himself out of the game. You make the move, and then you move on. And I think that's probably what we're heading to at some point here with Michigan.
Well, if life was fair and we're always doing the good thing to do to an individual who's doing their job, then you keep Cade McNamara in. But if it's cutthroat to a certain extent, maybe I shouldn't go to that extent of labeling it cutthroat. But hey, we're here to win championships. Look at the way this could play out with Cade McNamara staying in the lineup. This team is better than Michigan State, I believe, at this point, until I'm proven otherwise. If Sean Clifford doesn't come back, and if Taquan Roberson doesn't upgrade considerably, which I expect him to do, I expect him to at least be a capable quarterback with 2 weeks of reps before this Indiana game, and he may turn into something, but probably not Sean Clifford, then Michigan may go to the Ohio State game undefeated. And so then what could be the best in case worst scenario all in one bag would be that Cade McNamara leads them to an 11-0 season until they get to the Ohio State game, and then they're down 31-7 at halftime.
Yes.
And they weren't proactive to make that move to get JJ McCarthy ready and get those reps and ready for Ohio State and start him from snap number 1.
But here's the thing. Do you risk being that record that you talked about if you make the move now? This is the situation they're in. And now, you know, over the years I've been plenty critical about how we have not seen the NFL Harbaugh at Michigan enough. But we do have the one college coach in America that does have a little bit of experience with this on the biggest stage of all, with what he did with Alex Smith and Colin Kaepernick, right? So for that reason, I guess I kind of trust him to know, right? To know when that has sort of played itself out. And I think you can see that he understands that by how much more often and how earlier in the game McCarthy is now getting into the game. Now, the one thing we have not yet seen, though, is we've not seen McCarthy given drives when the game is still competitive. We've seen him given plays when the game is still competitive. We've seen him given drives when the game is not competitive, but we haven't seen him given drives when the game is competitive. I will be fascinated to see if we see that this week against Northwestern.